Captain Una Park stood tall on the bridge of the UES Defiant. Earth had built this ship to explore deep space. It was the best ship humans had ever made. Through the large window at the front of the bridge, Una could see hundreds of alien ships. They were unlike anything she had ever seen before. The ships were sleek and shiny, with strange blue lights glowing along their sides. They moved in perfect formation, showing great skill and power. Una felt a chill run down her spine. Her ship was alone, far from Earth, facing what looked like a massive space army. "They're sending us a message, Captain," said Jun Kim from his station. Jun was in charge of communications. His fingers moved quickly over his control panel. Una nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The large screen at the front of the bridge changed. Now it showed the face of an alien. The creature had skin that looked like polished metal with a blue tint. Its eyes were large and completely black. It had no hair, and its head was longer than a human's. "I am High Commander Trell of the Valtharian Empire," the alien said in perfect English. Its voice was deep and smooth. "Your presence in our territory is not allowed." Una took a deep breath and stood straighter. She knew this moment would go down in history. This was humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. "I am Captain Park of Earth," she said firmly. "We come in peace and hope to become friends with your people." Several officers on the bridge held their breath. This was what they had trained for, but facing real aliens was far more intense than any simulation. The alien's face showed no emotion at first. Then its mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but it looked cold and unfriendly. "Earth," High Commander Trell said. "Another primitive world just learning how to travel in space." How predictable. The alien made the word primitive sound like an insult. "Your species has 48 hours to promise loyalty to the Empire or face the consequences." Before Una could respond, the screen went dark. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then everyone started talking at once. "Scan their ships. What kind of weapons do they have? Can we outrun them?" Una raised her hand, and the crew fell silent again. "Let's stay calm and think clearly," she said. "We need information." First Officer Ta Li walked up to Una. He had been studying the scan results on his tablet. His face was serious. "Captain, I found something worrying," Ta said quietly. "Our long-range scans show evidence that the Valtharians have destroyed 3 other developing space civilizations in this part of space alone." They weren't joking about consequences. Una looked at the data on Ta's tablet. It showed the remains of planets with unusual radiation patterns that suggested they had been attacked with advanced weapons. She felt sick. "How long have they been doing this?" she asked. "Based on the decay rates of the radiation, the most recent was just 6 months ago," Tai replied. Una's jaw tightened. She looked around at her crew. They were the best Earth had to offer, but they were just one ship against what seemed to be an entire empire. "Then we have 48 hours to make sure Earth doesn't become the 4th, she said firmly. Una turned to Science Officer Mena. "I want everything you can find out about their technology. Look for weaknesses." She turned to Tactical Officer Bin. "Run simulations on escape routes. If we need to get this information back to Earth, we need to know our options." The crew moved with new purpose, the shock of first contact now replaced with determination. Una walked to the window and looked out at the alien armada. Earth had sent the Defiant to explore and make friends. Instead, they had found a threat greater than anything humanity had imagined. She thought about her home planet, billions of people going about their lives, unaware that an alien empire had just put them on a countdown to submission or destruction. "We will not bow," she whispered to herself, "and we will not let you harm our home." The Defiant hummed around her as her crew worked to find a way to save humanity from this unexpected danger. They had 48 hours to either find a way to fight back or to escape and warn Earth. Either way, Captain Una Park knew that everything had changed. Humanity was not alone in the universe, but their new neighbors were not friendly. The next 2 days would determine the fate of the human race. Captain Una Park waited anxiously as the small shuttle returned to the Defiant. It carried Diplomatic Officer Han, who had gone to meet with the Valtharians. The whole crew watched the docking bay camera feed on the bridge screens. They all hoped for good news. The shuttle doors opened, and Han stepped out. One look at his face told Una everything she needed to know. His normally confident expression was gone. He looked tired and upset. 20 minutes later, Han entered the bridge. His formal uniform jacket was draped over his arm instead of being worn properly. His shoulders slumped. "How did it go?" Una asked, though she already knew the answer. Han shook his head. "They wouldn't even let me finish our proposal. They called us cosmic infants and laughed when I mentioned equal diplomatic relations." "Did they hurt you?" asked Ta, the first officer. "Not physically," Han replied. "But they made it clear what they think of humans. They treated me like I was a child playing a game. One of them actually patted me on the head." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Things were not going well. "What about their ships?" Una asked. "Did you see anything useful while you were there?" Han nodded. "I wore the special contact lenses Science Officer Sue gave me. They recorded everything." At her station, Sue was already working with the data from Han's recording devices. Her fingers flew across her control panel as she analyzed what Han had seen on the Valtharian ship. "Captain," Sue called out excitedly, "I've discovered something unusual about their shield configuration. There's a resonance pattern that suggests a fundamental vulnerability." Una walked over to Sue's station. The screen showed complex energy patterns that made up the Valtharian shields. Sue pointed to a repeating wave pattern in the data. "See this," Sue explained. "Their shields are incredibly strong, but they pulse at this specific frequency. If we could hit them with an opposite wave pattern at exactly the right moment, we could create a destructive interference pattern." Una finished, understanding immediately. The waves would cancel each other out. "Exactly." Sue nodded. "It would be like pushing on a swing at exactly the wrong time. Instead of making it go higher, you stop it." Una studied the data carefully. "Can we modify our weapons to take advantage of this?" "I think so," Sue replied. "But I'll need to work with Engineer Jin to reconfigure our systems." "Good work, Sue," Una said, feeling a small spark of hope for the first time since they'd encountered the Valtharians. Before they could discuss it further, the communication system chimed loudly. The main screen activated automatically, showing High Commander Trell's face. The alien looked even more smug than before. "Your time grows short, human," Trell said coldly. "Submit or be destroyed. We will make an example of your single, pathetic vessel." Una didn't respond. She simply stared back at the alien commander, refusing to show fear. After a moment of silence, Trell ended the transmission with a dismissive wave of his hand. The bridge was quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. They had very little time left to make a decision. Una turned to face her crew. These were the best officers Earth had to offer. They had trained for years for deep space exploration. They had prepared for first contact with alien life. But no one had prepared them for this, an ultimatum from a powerful empire that saw humans as nothing more than pests. "We have one ship against their fleet," Una said, breaking the silence. "We can retreat to warn Earth, or we can show them humans aren't to be underestimated." She looked at each crew member's face. They were scared. Who wouldn't be? But they were also proud and determined. The bridge fell silent as everyone considered the options. Running might save their lives, but would give the Valtharians more time to prepare for an attack on Earth. Fighting seemed hopeless against such overwhelming odds. Engineer Jin stood up from his station. He was usually quiet during bridge discussions, preferring to work on the ship's systems rather than join in debates. But now he spoke up firmly. "I say we fight," Jin said. His voice was steady and clear. "Sue's discovery gives us a chance. It's a small one, but it's better than nothing." Una looked at Jin with new respect. "You realize what that means. Even if this works, we might not survive. Jin nodded. My grandmother used to tell me stories about her grandfather, who fought in a war when our country was invaded. He was just one soldier against a much bigger army. But he fought anyway, because some things are worth fighting for. One by one, other crew members voiced their agreement. Han, still smarting from the humiliation he had endured, was one of the first to back Jin's position. Yuna looked around at her brave crew. The odds were terrible. The Valtharians had dozens of ships, advanced technology, and thousands of years of experience conquering other species. But the Defiant had something the Valtharians didn't expect: a crew that refused to give up, even when victory seemed impossible. Then it's decided, Yuna said. We fight. The crew of the Defiant worked quickly, making changes to their ship's systems. They had only a few hours left before the Valtharians would attack. Everyone was busy at their stations, focusing on their tasks despite their fear. Science Officer Sue stood in the center of the bridge. She showed the crew what she had learned about the aliens. Their entire culture abhors artificial intelligence, Sue explained as the crew prepared their countermeasures. Their systems are powerful, but rigid. What does that mean? Asked Communications Officer Jun. It means they hate AI. Sue replied. They think it's dangerous or unholy. Their technology is very advanced, but it cannot think or learn on its own. Engineer Jin looked up from his work with a smile. He had been making changes to the ship's defense systems for hours. Our adaptive AI can exploit that, Jin said, nodding enthusiastically. We've modified our deflectors to create a resonance pattern that should disrupt their shield harmonics. He saw the confused looks on some faces and explained more simply. Our ship's computer can learn and change. Theirs cannot. We've taught our shields to find the weak spots in their shields. Captain Yuna nodded. It was a risky plan, but it was all they had. How much longer until it's ready? She asked. It's ready now, Jin replied. But it will get better the more it learns about their attacks. The tactical display on the main screen changed. It showed 5 Valtharian warships moving toward the Defiant in a V-shape. Tactical Officer Day studied the display with a frown. They believe this will be easy. They've deployed minimal forces. Only 5 ships. First Officer Tai asked. They have dozens. They don't think they need more to defeat one human ship, Dad explained. They're treating this like a small pest problem, not a real battle. Captain Yuna took her command chair in the center of the bridge. Her face was calm, but her hands gripped the armrests tightly. Let them believe that, she said. All hands, battle stations. Around the bridge, crew members secured equipment and prepared for combat. Warning lights flashed, and the ship's computer announced the battle alert. Shields at maximum, reported Jin. A defense system online. The 5 Valtharian ships moved closer. They were beautiful in a strange way, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. But they were also terrifying. Each one was 3 times the size of the Defiant. They're charging weapons, Dai warned. Hold steady, Yuna ordered. Remember, we need to let the AI learn from their attacks. The lead Valtharian ship fired. A beam of bright green energy shot across space and hit the Defiant. The ship shook violently, lights flickered, and some crew members were thrown from their seats. But the shields held. Shield adaptation successful, the ship's computer announced in its calm voice. Countermeasures ready. On the main screen, High Commander Trell's face appeared. His black eyes were wide with surprise. Impossible, he shouted. Fire again. The Valtharian ships fired together this time. 5 energy beams struck the Defiant at once. The ship groaned under the attack. A small fire broke out at one station, and a crew member quickly put it out with an extinguisher. But again, the shields held. And this time, the ship barely shook. Shield effectiveness improved by 40%. The computer reported. Learning pattern established. Sue looked at her readings in amazement. The AI is analyzing each attack and adjusting our shields in real time. It's working. The Valtharians fired a third time, trying a different weapon. This time, it was a pulsing ball of energy that exploded against the Defiant's shields. But the ship's AI had already predicted this change in tactics. The shields adjusted before the attack even hit. Shields holding at 95%. Jin reported with a grin. The adaptation is happening faster now. On the screen, High Commander Trell was shouting orders to his ships. They tried different weapons, different angles of attack, different power levels. But each time, the Defiant's AI learned and adapted. Meanwhile, the Valtharian ships kept using the same attack patterns. Their technology was advanced, but it couldn't learn like the Defiant's AI could. They're following standard attack protocols, Dai observed. Their tactics are from a combat manual, not creative thinking. Captain Yuna watched the battle with growing confidence. Her ship was not just surviving, it was getting stronger with each attack. Their rigid thinking is their weakness, she said. They've relied on superior firepower for so long that they've forgotten how to innovate. After 10 minutes of continuous attacks, the Valtharian ships paused. The Defiant was still intact, its shields glowing brightly. They're confused, Jun said, listening to their communications. They don't understand why we're not destroyed yet. Yuna smiled. Now it's our turn. Su, Jin, is our offensive system ready? Su nodded. The AI has mapped their shield frequencies completely. We can target the exact points where their shields are weakest. Weapons ready, Da confirmed. Captain Yuna straightened in her chair. The moment of truth had arrived. Target their lead ship, she ordered. Fire when ready. The Defiant's weapons came to life, sending a precisely calibrated beam toward the lead Valtharian vessel. The beam passed through their shields, as if they weren't even there, striking the ship's hull directly. The alien ship's lights flickered, and it drifted sideways, clearly damaged. On the screen, High Commander Trell's face showed something new. Fear. Captain Yuna Park stood firmly on the bridge of the Defiant. The first attack had worked. One Valtharian ship was damaged. Now it was time to press their advantage. Target their lead vessel's shield generators, ordered Captain Yuna. Fire calibrated pulses on my mark. Tactical Officer Daz's fingers moved quickly over his control panel. The weapons system locked onto the enemy ship's weak points. The Defiant's computers had found the exact pattern needed to bypass the Valtharian shields. Ready, Captain, Day reported. Yuna took a deep breath. Fire. The Defiant unleashed a series of precisely timed energy bursts. They didn't look impressive, just small flashes of blue light, but each pulse was perfectly timed to slip through the gaps in the Valtharian shields, like threading a needle. The lead Valtharian ship's lights went out completely. It drifted in space, no longer a threat. Direct hit, Day announced. Their main power is offline. The crew cheered, but Yuna raised her hand for silence. 2 more, she said. Same pattern. The Defiant turned and fired again. The second Valtharian ship tried to evade, but the AI predicted its movement perfectly. Another series of energy pulses hit their target. The second ship went dark. The third ship attempted to retreat, but it was too late. The Defiant's weapons found their mark again. Now 3 enemy warships drifted powerless in space, their systems offline but their crews alive. The bridge erupted in cheers. For a moment, it seemed like an impossible victory had been achieved. But then an urgent call cut through the celebration. Captain. Communications Officer Jun called out, his voice tight with alarm. Long-range sensors detect 12 more Valtharian vessels incoming. The cheering stopped. Everyone looked at the tactical display. 12 red dots were moving quickly toward their position. These were larger ships, probably their main battle fleet. Yuna nodded grimly. She had expected this. The Valtharians would not accept defeat easily. They would bring overwhelming force. How long until they arrive? She asked. 7 minutes, Tai replied. Yuna looked around at her crew. They had fought bravely and achieved something remarkable. But they couldn't win against 12 more ships. Even their AI couldn't adapt fast enough to so many enemies at once. But Yuna had one more plan. Open a channel on all frequencies, she ordered June. Not just to the Valtharians, but to every system in this sector. June looked surprised, but followed the order. Channel open, broadcasting to all frequencies in a 50 light-year radius. Boost the signal with everything we've got, Yuna added. I want this message to reach as far as possible. Once June confirmed the channel was ready, Yuma straightened her uniform and spoke clearly into the communication system. This is Captain Yuna Park of Earth. We have identified critical weaknesses in Valtharian shield and weapon systems. I am transmitting this data freely to all species under threat from the Empire. She nodded to Science Officer Sue, who began uploading all their findings, the shield frequency data, the attack patterns that worked, and the rigid response protocols the Valtharians used. The data streamed out across space in all directions. Sending now, Sue confirmed. The data package includes everything we've learned about their vulnerabilities. The transmission continued for 30 seconds before alarms sounded on June's panel. They're trying to jam our signal, he reported. Too late, Sue said with a smile. The data is already out. At least 7 nearby systems have acknowledged receipt. The main screen suddenly activated. High Commander Troll's face appeared, contorted with rage. His silver-blue skin had darkened to a deep purple color, and his black eyes seemed to burn with fury. What have you done? He shouted. His normally smooth voice was rough with anger. Captain Yuna faced the screen calmly. She had expected this reaction. Ensured that even if you destroy us, Yuna replied calmly, your empire's invincibility ends today. Troll's face showed shock and then understanding. He realized what had happened. The Defiant had given away the secret to defeating Valtharian technology to dozens of worlds. Even if they destroyed this one human ship now, the damage was done. You will pay for this treachery, Trell hissed. It's not treachery, Yuna replied. It's survival. You gave us no choice. Engineer Jin stepped forward. Captain, the main fleet will be in weapons range in 3 minutes. Yuna nodded. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We've accomplished our mission, but I'd still like to get this crew home in one piece. The tactical display showed the 12 Valtharian warships spreading out to surround the Defiant. There would be no escape. But then something unexpected happened. The communication system chimed again. Captain, Jones said with surprise, we're receiving multiple transmissions from nearby systems. They're offering assistance. The tactical display updated. 6 new ships were approaching from different directions. They were smaller vessels of various designs, clearly belonging to different species. They've received our transmission, June explained. They're saying they've been under Valtharian control for years. They want to help us. A new message came through, this one from a ship that identified itself as from the Lorkai Federation. Human Vessel Defiant, a gravelly voice said, we have received your data. Our scientists confirm it will work against Valtharian shields. Stand by for support. You are not alone. Yuna looked at the approaching alien ships with wonder. Their transmission hadn't just shared technical data. It had sparked hope in species that had lived under Valtharian oppression for generations. Send our thanks, Yuna ordered, and prepare to coordinate our defense with our new allies. The Defiant, which had been alone against an empire, now found itself at the center of what might become a rebellion. 3 days had passed since the battle. The Defiant now drifted in neutral space, repaired enough to function but still showing scars from the fight. Captain Yuna Park stood on the bridge, looking more tired than she had ever been, but her eyes showed pride. The alliance that had formed so quickly after their distress call had fought the Valtharian ships to a standstill. It wasn't a complete victory, but it wasn't the easy win the Valtharians had expected either. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, Jum said. It's from the Valtharian Central Command. The crew tensed. They had been waiting for the Empire to respond with full force. Perhaps this was the final ultimatum before the real attack began. Put it through, Yuna ordered, straightening her uniform. The main screen lit up, but instead of High Commander Trell, a different figure appeared. This Valtharian was clearly older. His silver-blue skin had a pearly quality, and strange markings covered his face. He wore elaborate robes instead of the military uniform Trell had worn. "I am Emperor Vos of the Valtharian Empire," the figure announced. His voice seemed to fill the room, deep and powerful. The bridge crew froze. No one had expected to speak directly with the Emperor himself. "I am Captain Unipark of Earth," Yuna replied, working hard to keep her voice steady. The Emperor's black eyes studied her. They seemed ancient and tired. "You have caused quite the disturbance, Captain Park," the Emperor said, his voice echoing with power. "No single ship has challenged us in 5,000 years." Yuna stood tall. She was no longer afraid. "Humanity doesn't measure strength in years, Emperor, but in adaptability." A small smile appeared on the Emperor's face. It was the first genuine expression any of the crew had seen on a Valtharian. "Your small ship disabled 3 of our warships," the Emperor said. "And then you shared the method with every species in the sector." He paused. "An unexpected strategy." "We did what we had to do to survive," Yuna replied. The Emperor nodded slowly. "Perhaps we have grown complacent in our dominance. Your species deserves further examination." Yuna shook her head. "What we deserve is respect," she corrected. "As do the other species you've subjugated or threatened. I propose a new relationship, one of equals." The bridge crew held their breath. Yuna had just corrected an emperor who ruled thousands of worlds. Against all expectations, the Emperor laughed. It was a strange sound, like water flowing over stones. Boldness, too. "Very well, Captain. A treaty, then." 2 months later, the Defiant approached Earth. The ship looked different now. Its hull had been repaired with help from both human engineers and alien allies. New technology had been added, gifts from grateful species who had lived under Valtharian rule. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, the crew gathered on the bridge. They had been through so much together. They had faced an empire and changed the course of galactic history. "Communications from Earth Space Command," Jun announced. "They're asking about our guests." Yuna smiled. Behind the Defiant flew 3 ships, 1 Valtharian diplomatic vessel, and 2 ships from other species that had formed an alliance with Earth. "Tell them we're bringing friends," Yuna replied. When the Defiant finally docked at Earth Station 1, the crew was greeted as heroes. News of their encounter with the Valtharian Empire had reached Earth weeks earlier, but the details of what they had achieved were still being understood. In the main meeting hall of the station, Captain Unipark presented the Treaty of Earth to the United Nations representatives. It was more than just a peace agreement with the Valtharians. It was a new framework for relations between all spacefaring civilizations, one that protected the rights of developing worlds. "This treaty ensures that no species will face the ultimatum we faced," Yuna explained to the assembled leaders. "All civilizations, regardless of their technology level, have the right to develop without interference or demands of submission." The Valtharian ambassador nodded in agreement. The Emperor had sent one of his most trusted advisors to finalize the treaty. Far away, in the Imperial Palace on the Valtharian homeworld, Emperor Vos issued a new order. He commanded the creation of a special academy to study human history and innovation. The scholars were confused by this order, but the Emperor insisted. "Our empire has existed for 10,000 years, he told his council. Yet a single human ship showed us that age does not equal wisdom. The Emperor looked out at the stars from his palace window. "The humans measure strength not in years or size, but in adaptability. This is a lesson we must learn." In the first classroom of the new academy, a Valtharian teacher showed her students an image of the UES Defiant. "This small ship," she said, "changed our understanding of power. Remember this lesson. True strength comes not from dominance, but from the ability to change and grow." As the Defiant's crew returned to their families on Earth, they carried with them not just medals and honors, but the knowledge that they had opened a new chapter in human history. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and thanks to their courage, it would meet the stars as an equal, not as a servant. The end.